Hi, this is Leora Alderson here from Best Boomers, Boomers Reinvented, and also My Trainer Fitness, because I'm talking to some fitness ladies today, and we're going to share this interview on all those sites. So today we're here with Kymberly and Alexandra, twin sisters, and I can't believe I just blanked on your names. Your last names, rather. So it's Kymberly Williams-Evans and Alexandra Williams, and they are twin sisters, and they have been tearing up the fitness field for the past, 30 years?
A little more, close enough.
Yeah.
30, almost 35. 32.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, you guys, there's so much to cover in your story because it seems like you've been everywhere and done everything practically. And what I'd like to start with is basically, I want to send people to your site so they get to see your amazing bios. You guys write so well, write very humorously, and I read every word of both your bios, and I want everyone else to do the same because they're so well written, not only in terms of your accomplishments and what you've done all these years, but in how well you write and with such personality and humor. So I want to send people there. But if you could give then people just a short synopsis of your story, okay, so you're both sisters, you're both in the same fitness field, and how did you get started? Maybe we can start there.
Okay. All right. Well, our site is FitAndFun.org. And do you want to know first how we got started with fitness or how we got started with that site?
Let's go with fitness first.
Okay. Well, in 1983, in my case, Kymberly was living in Berlin, teaching fitness over there, and I left my job and joined her there, and it was West Berlin at the time.
Wow.
And we grew up with modern dance and soccer. So she said there's this new thing called aerobics. So I went over there. So my first teaching job was in Berlin, teaching at a studio there. And then I'll let Kymberly tell her part of that, and then we can.
And about what?
I'm going to go back.
Yeah. Okay. And when you say about what year was that, and about how old were you then?
Well, Alexandra's talking about 1983, and she was 23, I think, at the time. 25. But I'm going to back it up a couple years too. When we were in college, and a friend came and said, "Oh, there's this new thing called aerobics at our city college that we attended before we transferred." And I said, "Well, I haven't heard of that." "Yeah, you go in and you do like a dance class for an hour solid and you don't stop." And I looked at her and I said, "Why the heck would I do that? That sounds exhausting." Once we graduated from college, I did end up in 1981 going to Europe and teaching in Berlin, as Alexandra mentioned, at the very, very first aerobics studio on the European continent. And that was out of desperation. I essentially had the equivalent of very few dollars left, or marks, German marks, Deutsche marks at the time. And I wanted to stay in Berlin. I loved it. And somebody said, "Hey, there's this aerobics studio, something aerobics, but it's some kind of American is doing this. You got to check it out, Kymberly." And I ended up getting hired as their first Californian aerobics instructor.
Excellent. Do you speak German?
I do now. Yes.
Okay.
I did. Well, I had taken 2 years in college, and I quickly got a notebook and learned inhale, exhale, 8, forward, backward, left side.
Good. Go ahead, Alexandra.
I learned aerobic German. She's German. But I forget what I was about to say, but I know that from there, Kymberly was there for several years, and I was just there for a little while. And then we came back, and I wanted to support myself through, I did the post-baccalaureate work in Russian studies, and I was living in San Diego. So to support myself, I got a job teaching this aerobics thing, that as the Germans called it. But, and then at the time I said, well, this should just be a part-time job to get me through. And that was, as I said, 30-something years ago, and I've been in it ever since. So we were on I remember what I was going to say is we did a weekly show when we were living in Berlin that Kymberly first got that gig, and then I joined her for a few of them. So once a week we'd head over and do it for the American military.
Ah, cool.
Yeah, so we've done TV shows, we've done lots of radio shows, and because we're you could be a provider of continuing education credits, so we spent a lot of time traveling the world, doing workshops and presentations where people could get credits to keep their certification, stuff like that.
Wow,
And,
I mean, it sounds like the dream job. I mean, here you were, young, single, fit, getting paid to be fit and exercise, you know, and engage with people. How amazing!
It was amazing. We really like to say fitness has taken us around the world to meet some of the best people, because as you and I hope all your listeners know, there's a correlation between people who exercise, people who share similar values. They tend to be more outgoing, more educated, just more vibrant. And so, yeah, we've had a chance to meet some of the most amazing people around the world thanks to fitness in our careers.
Yeah. And you were, so well, let's see, did you get started with Jane Fonda?
You know, it's kind of the equivalent. I'm going to say yes, because both Alexandra and I think at different times, we went to the Jane Fonda studio that existed on Robertson in LA. And we went and we took 2 classes there with the record player, where you would jog in place and do routines. And then the instructor would move the needle on the record to the next song. Or when it was between songs before music was mixed, you would just kind of jog in place while the song changed.
Yeah.
And then...
No, Kymberly was already living in Berlin.
When she came over,
she asked me, so they said, well, can your sister teach aerobics? We love that Jane Fonda style. So living just about a mile from there. So I went over there, and as Kymberly said, I took about 2 classes because they had spot squatters. You know, so no matter where you went in the room, it was somebody else's spot, and people weren't very nice about it.
Oh.
So I didn't go there.
Well, I went to my 2 classes, and I headed over to Europe as I say, the E1 between my undergraduate and graduate work. And the studio where we both ended up teaching that I started, and then it exploded and it got so popular in Germany, they needed more instructors, and that's why they hired my sister to fly over and for me to train her subsequently. But it was started by a woman similar to Jane Fonda, an American who had enough talent to know that she had no talent in the States. So she put herself upon Europe and made a movie career there, and was a very famous actress, Sydney Rome. So she created the Sydney Rome Let's Move Studios in Berlin. So it was an American with a German movie career, lending her name to the studio, similar to what Jane Fonda did. So
Wow.
Yes, we both trained at the Jane Fonda studio twice each. And yes, we ended up working for the sort of equivalent in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Well, you said that your story involves revolutions, Europe, lost luggage in the Arctic Circle, and workout tops gone awry.
It's all true. It's all true. So we're best now, though.
Okay.
Why don't we start with the workout tops that went awry? They were absolutely the bathing suit. So here we are, twins, as you mentioned, and we don't have twin telepathy. Yeah. Alexandra was still in California, and I was in Germany, and I had bought a bathing suit because for this TV show that we were doing, they asked us to do some pool classes. So we said, yeah, we can learn how to teach pool aerobics. I bought a bathing suit, and then Alexandra came over, and she had bought the same bathing suit in a different color. Of all the suits in the world, we had bought the same suit. Well, I don't know if you remember, and I hope your viewers remember these wraparound cross one pieces.
Yeah.
So the rage in the early and mid 80s. And so there we were doing our pool class. Do you want to take it from here, Alexandra? Do you remember?
I don't remember this story. I didn't know.
She's blanked it out.
Yeah. The show filmed live. And sometimes one of us would be on the deck, sometimes we'd be in the water, sometimes both, one place or the other. And in this particular episode, that was again live, I was on the deck. So I think Alexandra must have been in the water. So I'm demonstrating the moves, and I start showing the twisting moves that I want the participants to be doing. Well, unfortunately, as I twisted to the right and left, my top did not go with me.
Yeah.
We like to say maybe the ratings went up on the TV show.
Yeah. You were an early Janis Joplin.
Yeah. Especially the Germans are very easygoing about being topless.
Yeah, or early Janet Jackson. Yeah.
I think I blocked it out because I probably tried to drown myself in embarrassment.
So my top, I went right, my top stayed there.
I remember the part where the cameraman really liked to zoom in right on the replay later. The camera was always like,
Yikes. Well, that's one of the good things about getting to be our age is we can laugh about those things, and and even the things that are more recent, it's like we don't, I think, have you found that you don't get upset about the little things so much anymore, although that seems like a big thing at the time.
Sadly, my cleavage is a little thing, so no, I'm not upset. Not upset at all.
She's had to live with that.
Well, okay, so what about the Arctic Circle?
Oh, again, that was my story. I was hired to work on a cruise ship, and the reason they hired me, partly not only the fitness, but because I had fluent German at that time, and some of the tourists embarked from Germany. At any rate, we were on this one cruise that went all the way up to the Arctic Circle. Well, I made it to the ship on time, but my luggage did not.
Oh,
and here I was supposed to teach and perform my job and lead classes, but I didn't have any of my stuff.
I hope she had her bathing suit.
Yeah. That's right. The reliable bathing suit.
So my fitness partner, there were two of us assigned at a given time, and the other fitness professional on board was a guy, and he was shorter than I, very fit, shorter and squatter. So he loaned me his tracksuit, basically, which I had to roll up, put a belt on, roll up the sleeves, roll up the pants. I couldn't really teach a class in that, but that's what I could wear on deck, at least to go get meals. Then the dancers on board loaned me some of their little sequin numbers so that I had something to sort of teach in. And up the Arctic Circle, there aren't a lot of airports for planes to land at to bring lost luggage. So we had to wait. I think I did that for 5 days until we had a port at what's called the Spitsbergen Islands, way up there. And a tiny little plane flew in to deliver my luggage. It was never so happy to see my, shoes and my workout gear.
No kidding.
There's a rumor that the sequin outfit is where she started the pole dancing craze. Just a rumor.
Yeah. Right. So for the one for the archives, the pole dancing. Somehow I don't picture it.
Archives.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And so what about the so that was the lost luggage. And what about the revolutions?
Well, Alexandra started, we had a series of coincidences.
Right. It just seemed that wherever we would travel, there seemed to be a coup. So, for example, in 89, was it 89 or 91? I think it was 89 when we were over in Germany. They had the East, well, it was the Gorbachev, the revolution with Mikhail Gorbachev and Boris Yeltsin, but that translated to the East German wall, the Berlin Wall coming down, and we happened to be there. And I'll let Kymberly finish this story because she's got some strong memories about that.
Well, it was in November. In November of 1989 is when the wall fell. So Alexandra's correct that wherever we traveled, to make it interesting, I hope for your listeners, is when we happened to be in Berlin teaching fitness, hired for that, when the Berlin Wall fell. And Alexandra happened to be in what was called at that time still the Soviet Union when the putsch occurred.
That was 91.
So there she was in her fitness gear when the putsch occurred. And there we both were in Berlin. And then I was in Venezuela, hired by a club, Top Spa Caracas in Venezuela, to train their instructors when they had Hugo Chavez's first attempt at a coup. So bullet holes in the airport, and all the Americans were told to stay in our hotel rooms. We started to notice this trend.
Yeah.
We really discovered that if ever anyone wants the perfect spy career cover, be a fitness instructor.
Right.
Good spy cover.
Actually, the people who were hosting me, because I was living with a Russian family, at first when I was there, Americans were welcome and very excited. They loved us and our blue jeans.
Yeah.
And then when the putsch occurred, when, Yeltsin stood on top and, all that, then they weren't so sure what would happen. So they were not quite as excited about having Americans because they didn't know if it would go back to being like they would be accused of being spies for having Americans. So they treated us extremely well. I mean, I was treated extremely well, and they were really, really nervous. So out of consideration for the various hosts and the various clubs that I was going to, I tried to keep an extremely low profile. So they loaned me Russian clothing, and they said the thing that would always give you away was the shoes. So I either wore Russian or Polish shoes and didn't wear my watch and stuff like that. And there were other suggestions that they made to help, like even the hairstyle. My hair would look to Americans. So essentially they had to it wasn't them asking me, I asked them because I wanted to help protect them.
Yeah.
And they helped me dress so that I would look more Russian or Polish, or at least not American. And then my Russian wasn't good enough to pass, so I just kept my mouth shut, which Kymberly would probably point out is a once-in-a-lifetime deal.
I wasn't going to say anything.
No, but you were smiling. I saw that. Well, so was there any time during all that you guys were afraid?
Actually, in Venezuela, yeah, I was a little afraid because I didn't know what was going on when Hugo Chavez attempted his first coup. I was in my hotel room and I heard, shots. I heard concerned voices. I heard yelling. I sleep through the night. And then in the morning, I was actually supposed to be picked up to go do a TV interview and a workout for a big facility. And instead, I got a phone call from my host saying, look, I need to pick you up and I need to take you home with me and not leave you at that hotel. And so, yeah, she said, there's been this coup attempt and we have to keep a low profile. And I remember thinking, yeah, it's a little scary. Okay. Yeah, I heard shots. And then when we passed the airport, I could see the damage from some of what had happened. Yeah, so I was a little bit scared at that time. In Germany, we weren't scared at all. When the Berlin Wall fell, that was just exciting.
Yeah.
We got to stand up on the wall. And most people don't realize that it was actually two walls. And so there was the wall that you saw from the west side that had all the graffiti on it. And then there was this moat area, essentially, the open space. And then there was the wall that sat inside on the East Berlin side. So really it made it more difficult for people to cross. So it wasn't until then that Berliners and anybody in Berlin was climbing up on the walls. Well, the Stasi, the secret police, were also standing up on the walls. But at this time, by the time we climbed up there with them, they were waving their hats. And that was just a lot of fun, really.
Yeah.
So scary.
A powerful moment. I mean, you were living in a pivotal moment in history where freedom was prevailing. So I can imagine how charged that would be. Mm-hmm. The air, the environment, the people.
Mm-hmm. I even still have my T-shirt, and it has the date. It says I was there. We were literally there when the wall was falling. Yeah.
Did you bring home a piece?
Everyone asks us. I had earrings.
Yeah.
From pieces of the wall.
Cool.
She did. You asked a great question, and everyone asked that. And honestly, if I had been there 2 days after the wall fell, I would have grabbed a piece because everyone was by that time. But no, I did not because it was so new.
Yeah.
Nobody was grabbing pieces of the wall at that time. It was still similar to what she said with the Soviet Union. We didn't know which way things were going to go.
Right.
So I never grabbed any souvenir at all except my T-shirt. I left all the wall there except, I guess, her earrings.
Yeah. So you guys were traveling around the world in Europe and, just living an amazing life. The timing of your opportunities. I mean, how fortunate, the timing of the opportunities of the need and the demand and the interest in aerobics and your use and you're getting into that kind of career. So about how long did that last? About how old were you when you came back and settled into the States?
Well, I came back to the States in the mid-'80s because I wanted to go to, it's post-baccalaureate because I didn't do my master's in Russian studies, but I did want to do Russian studies. So I came back to do my Russian studies, and I didn't actually get my graduate degree until the late 90s. So, but when I actually stopped traveling, because we still traveled in the mid-'80s and the late 80s and then the early 90s, but then we had kids. So my first kid was born in 94. So that's about when I stopped traveling for fitness on a regular basis. And also the industry shifted. It used to be that the United States sort of dominated many areas of the fitness industry, including research and presentation. But the other parts of the world quickly realized that they had many strengths of their own. And so it was a lot harder to travel worldwide and the need wasn't right and be paid for it.
Yeah.
But those sort of coincided. But also I had kids, and so I was at home, like lifting a plate with a bar and plates, and I'd have my kids holding on while I did a bicep curl and lifting them off the ground. That was my big excitement.
Cool. Did you make any DVDs of that?
No.
You didn't do any mom workouts back then?
Or good visionaries on products. I know we kind of missed the boat on that part, but no.
We do have blackmail videos out there somewhere. Just sort of one-offs where people would record us if we were doing something. Because we did a lot of presentations and some together. But
Right.
we didn't do any DVDs for the consumer market.
Sure. Well, so
Face is not that clever.
yeah, well, no, but actually it wasn't as common or as easy to get access back then. So it wasn't in everybody's mind, whereas now we can all publish. And so it's an easier thing to think about now. It just wasn't a part of the mass consciousness then, you know, of what was available. So it makes sense that you wouldn't have done that yet. Being in fitness all these years, did you guys have any lag times where you just got tired of it? Or have you?
I've never suffered from burnout. I've never had, like, the only lag time I had was these last 3 months when I've had a knee issue. And so I was not able to teach for 2.5 months, which I really hated. I still could walk my dog, but no, I'd say the only lag time was this forced time. And I did not enjoy it. I'd have rather been in the classroom and in the gym and in the club, but I've never had burnout. I've always been able to segue. If I'm tired of one mode of teaching or something, I've been able to shift to some other. Yeah. And I'm not tired of people. Really, fitness is about people in our world.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Well, your dog is barking because he or she wants to move, right?
That's right.
And I think that it sort of segues right into my point. Your dog is making a point that most humans, and I would love to know what your viewers think of this, is that once you do a lot of movement, it's actually more comfortable to be still. So I've never had burnout. Like, there have been times when I'm happy to go on vacation just to take a break from teaching. I mean, I don't think, oh, I need a break from teaching, but when I'm on vacation, I think, oh, this is nice. But I'm not, even if I'm not teaching, I'm walking or I'm moving. For me, as I think for your dog, it's uncomfortable to be stationary.
Yeah. No, that's a very good point. And because we're not designed that way, we're not made to be that way. And if people would move more, in particular, when it is they're suffering from something, then that really helps to clear and change, changing the physiology, change the mind, change the focus, changes the focus. And that's a really good point. I haven't heard it put quite that way, that that the more you move, the more comfortable it is to be still. That's very.
No, the more uncomfortable it is to be still. The more we move.
Uncomfortable.
Yeah, uncomfortable.
Oh, okay. So what I was picturing is, you know how if you're sitting a long time and you're restless, then to be able to move, like today, I've been sitting at the desk since 6:30 a.m. And so before our call, we hit the hills on our bikes, and it just felt so good. It felt so good to move. And then after the movement, the body's able to be more relaxed, and comfortable.
Oh, we agree with that too. Yeah. Absolutely, I agree with you.
You froze up.
I think Alexandra was talking about the overall picture.
Yeah.
Once you move a lot, you don't like sitting.
We don't like being sedentary.
Right. I mean, that's part of why I run circles around Kymberly.
Part of why what?
Why I run circles around Kymberly.
Right. Well, she's had a hurt knee.
Okay, I stepped on her toe.
Yeah. So you guys are. Can I ask what year you were born?
Yeah, I was born in 58. She was born earlier.
4 minutes earlier, right?
You're close. 8. Yeah.
8 minutes earlier. Okay. So 58. So I was born in 59. So you guys are a year ahead of me. What month?
You're a baby.
Yeah. Right. What month were you born?
August.
Okay. I'm
speaking for her too.
Yeah.
I'll go with what she says.
Yeah. So you said you didn't grow up telepathic, so you're not as telepathic twins. Is that really true? Is that so you don't have?
Kymberly is right now thinking that I'm very fascinating.
Right. But you're.
Hold on, wait. No, she made me think that.
Yeah, I made her think that.
But
telepathy.
We have odd things like as she mentioned, we bought the same bathing suit.
Yeah.
Only mine didn't have that level of movement, but and we'll buy sometimes the same shoes. And her husband was just using her to get to me, I'm sure. But other than that, I think we're never sure if that's a twin thing or a growing up together.
Yeah, just environmental.
Yeah.
Or just has really good taste and copies me.
Possible.
Well, but it sounds like sometimes twins are. You hear every story. The twins are a lot alike or they're opposite. But certainly, you guys have a lot of the same kinds of things of interest in common.
Mm-hmm. Well, our mom was a modern dance teacher, so all 5 of her kids grew up with movement.
Excellent.
So I don't know if it's a twin thing or a mom thing.
Yeah, well, that's a good point. So now what do you see? You're focusing on boomers, which I think is awesome. People, basically 50 and over, and working on movement. You said on your site, you say something about active aging answers for boom chicka boomers.
Exactly.
Yes. So tell us a little bit about that. What are you doing in that work?
Well, after spending so many years training professionals and certainly also working with regular people teaching classes.
Regular people.
Regular
enthusiasts, fitness enthusists.
Going directly to the consumer. Alexandra and I, I'm going to tell you.
The irregular and the regular people.
I'm going to tell you a little story.
Okay.
5 years ago, almost exactly 5 years ago, I came back from a conference talking about work and purpose and passion and motivation. And I said, Alexandra, look, the two of us have had similar backgrounds, parallel careers in fitness and writing and editing, in teaching. Let's put this together and really go directly to the consumer, the enthusiast, the exerciser, online and in person still. And let's create a blog called FitAndFun.org. It turned out because .com was way too expensive and already taken. And she looked at me, she goes, Kymberly, that is perfect because Alexandra, I'm fun. I'm fit. You can be and. And I said, I'm really okay with that. It takes off the pressure. So we started FitAndFun.org.
She's working her way up to being org.
Yeah.
Eventually org.
And org.
Yes.
And so that really was our goal was we had these parallel careers, but we hadn't worked directly together.
And when we first started writing, we were answering, people would send us questions. As time went by, we realized that the people that were asking us the questions most consistently and the interaction we were getting most consistently was from people our own age, like 95% women. So we realized, okay, you know what? A, we don't want to do the high impact stuff. We like the high intensity, but not the high impact. And B, our natural audience has found us. So we narrowed our focus. And so anybody can read and benefit from anything that we say or write on FitAndFun.org. It's just that we are very geared toward the boomer market because not only are we in that so we understand the issues, it's also that we have spent so much time with the research and that we have the professional knowledge to really apply to this age group that has joint issues or has weight issues or has motivational issues or has time pressure issues. The same issues that all age groups have, but this group has very specific combination of issues.
And for me, it was a little more, hey, these are the people I really like. Here are the people with whom I like to engage. This is the area I know best. I'm going through what they're going through. Menopause is hitting, empty nest syndrome, wanting to work out, but things are starting to ache. Not sleeping as well, not having the same energy level, still valuing movement and fitness. So I felt like I understood baby boomer women better. Also, we just spent all over the map trying to answer things on our blog. And at least I put my foot down. I said, I really don't care that much right now about addressing workouts that have the words challenge, barbed wire, punishment, ruling,
electrocution.
Seriously.
Killing it.
Dragging tires across
your
highways.
If you have to throw up at the end of your workout, we're probably not the ones for you.
I'm just not interested in that anymore. I want to follow where I'm interested in. Where we were interested and where we were getting the response from the readers and our listeners was women like us and in our age group and slightly older too.
Well, when she says women like us, I hope what you're understanding is she means hotties.
Of course. Yeah, there's no question about it.
Women like me means anyone who's alive and vibrant and wants to actively age. I teach at a university.
Yes.
So I love that age group, and I also teach people in their 70s and 80s, and I love that age group. So I don't narrow down which age group I prefer teaching to. They all are just fantastic.
They're all fun.
It's just on our site. Really, they found us. They told us, our readers were loud and clear, you are who, we are boomers. We are coming to you for advice for our very specific needs. So we took the hint.
Right.
And also regarding the empty nest syndrome that Kymberly mentioned, I don't have that yet because Kymberly keeps showing up at mealtime.
Well, probably because I hear that you're a good vegetarian cook. Is that right?
Well,
She is.
Yeah.
I bake a lot of bread.
Yeah. Oh, well, no
Alexandra
wonder.
She's a good vegetarian cook. Yeah.
I've cooked many vegetarians. Yes.
Right. Right. Are you vegetarian, Alexandra?
I am.
Okay. Are you lacto? I am as well. Are you lacto-ovo?
No, I already went through menopause.
Right.
Actually, we have, yes, we have our own chickens. We don't eat the chickens, but every time they out of a little egg, we eat it.
Yeah. Oh, you
And
do
I'm
have chickens?
So I'm not vegan.
Right.
I don't eat chickens, but I eat eggs and
Right.
I eat dairy.
Very cool. So you guys, you said you lived about 3 minutes away from each other, 3-minute walk across the meadow. I didn't hear what you said earlier. Is that like a large family acreage, or do you live in a similar neighborhood?
Well, we co-own a big property, and there are 2 houses on the property. We don't call it the family compound because then we're too worried that the rest of our family might make their way up. We love our family, but we just probably too high energy for all of us together to all live together. So
Yeah.
Alexandra does live across the meadow on the same property.
Nice.
So 3 minutes as if we're poking along.
Yeah, that's very nice.
3 minutes because I had foot surgery, so I'm not a fast walker right now.
Yeah. So Kymberly, did you have knee surgery?
I did.
And Alexandria, you had foot surgery. So what was going on? Yeah.
You know, I want to put a disclaimer. It's not related to our exercise. My injuries are from soccer from many, many years ago. And my evil genetic dad, who's still alive and also has bad knees.
Okay.
So I want to make it clear that the fact that we both had recent surgeries has nothing to do with our enthusiasm for movement. As a matter of fact, my surgery was only a week ago, and I'm already walking. He let me walk, and he gave me many exceptions because we recover really quickly.
Definitely, yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. In fact, you probably avoided so much ailments as a result of being fit.
Yeah.
Well, our age, and I'm including you and our baby boomers, our age group is the first age group to grow up with movement post-college as mainstream.
Oh.
Right? If you think about it.
Yeah.
After they got out of high school, or if they went to college after they got out of college, there wasn't this value or cultural phenomena of, oh, we continue to work out. Oh, sports career is over. There wasn't fitness. There was Jack LaLanne, but he was an anomaly.
Yeah.
So women and
he was
men,
also in a jumpsuit.
Yes. So this baby boomer midlife generation, we really are the first generation to transition from youth into adulthood with expectation of social cultural norms of movement. Yes. Even if the majority isn't, it's kind of the accepted mainstream norm. So it is true that the more women are experiencing injuries as a function of exercise. I don't want to gainsay that. Women especially are having knee issues. So one of the biggest growth industries, if somebody's looking for a career, become an orthopedic surgeon and specialize in active women's knees, because that is an issue.
Right. The number of surgeries for knees, ankles, stuff like that has really skyrocketed because our age group has said, we will not let these things stop us. We want to age actively, not sedentarily. So it is a good career.
Yeah. Have you guys thought about creating, maybe you already have that, creating exercises and exercise program or booklet or whatever for strong knees and strong back, things that help?
Well, actually, we do have a lead, and if people are interested, we can definitely put them in touch with what we think is a good knee program, specifically designed by a professional in the industry whom we know personally. Good. And link people to. We're ourselves developing now products and videos for the demand that people have said, hey, we need to restart. They're saying getting started, but they're usually saying getting restarted. And they're saying, well, we want to be fit, and we don't want it to hurt. We want it to be comfortable. We need some modifications.
And we don't want to wake up early.
And we don't want to wake up early. So yeah, we are developing exactly some programs along those lines that offer modifications and are joint friendly.
And also on our YouTube channel, which is YouTube Alexandra Fun Fit, because they had to have a name, so it has my name. We have many videos, but when I was in a boot, for foot surgery, I made some videos. The point that I made was just my foot was prohibited from exercising. The rest of me wasn't prohibited from exercising.
Yes.
So I did some videos that showed, like with a tube, back work and chest work, and I showed some on the mat where I was doing, I think, the planks or push a, chest press, so like that, or seated bicep curls, whatever it was. I do have some videos, and the point that I made in the videos is you can still work out, you just can't work out that part.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or that way. There's always
that way. There's always a way.
Yeah, I'm so glad you say that, because so many people are inclined to say, well, I can't get to the gym because I hurt my foot or my knee, but like you said, the rest of them can keep on going, and it really helps the ailment or the injury heal, to keep the rest of the body circulating and keeping strong. So yeah.
I even tried the rower because, I could put my surgery booty in the rower, and I discovered quickly how much I hated the rower. But, I did it. I wanted to do something.
Yeah.
Although one of our big philosophies is find what you love. We get asked all the time, well, what's the best exercise? The best exercise is the one or ones you will actually do.
Right.
And ultimately we'll do what we enjoy. And so
Right.
it really is, okay, find what you like to do. Sometimes you have to go to the rower, even if you don't like the rower. There's always a way to work around something. But ultimately, we really are advocates of find what you enjoy, start there. And do you need to start big? No, start with just a little bit more than you had been doing.
Absolutely.
A little bit more than the day before. And small steps lead to those big changes.
Yeah, definitely. Just little things that I like to try and remind myself to do, like when tying my shoes, to balance on one leg and to lift my knee up and to tie my shoe in the air, rather than prop it on the side of something, because now I'm getting the ab work, by lifting my knee, and also the core work by working on the balance, and so, or if I'm filling my glass of water, I noticed the other day I was leaning on the sink, filling my glass of water. We have nice well water here, so it's from the tap. And I realized that I needed to hold the glass in the air as opposed to lean, and support. So those are just small snippets. But if we add up all the things we do each day, whether it's leaning and squatting to pick something up versus leaning over, at the end of the week, at the end of the year, those make a difference.
Yeah, the body's designed to be efficient. And so people are always looking for the most physiologically and biomechanically efficient way to do something. Well, often that means locking into joints and ligaments, because it takes a lot of energy to use the muscles. So we look for efficient ways to lean or to sit, but in reality, if we can look for those ways that maybe are more muscle dependent and less movement efficient, because ultimately what we don't do, we can't do.
Right.
As you mentioned about like leaning on the counter or putting your foot down, we don't realize it because it's a small increment. But we start to lean, and then what happens is a year later you realize you can't do it without leaning anymore.
Right.
So sometimes, especially the masters I ended up getting was in counseling. So I'm always thinking from the motivational, from the mind, because really this is where your workout begins, and this is not only where it begins, but this is what gets you through it.
Yes.
Especially with my university students who are very young, they'll want to give up, and I'll say, well, that's your mind giving up, because your body can still go.
Yeah.
So I think about the mind stuff all the time. So generally just awareness, like as you said, you're aware of leaning. So when people start to become aware, or to write down, whether it's habits they're doing with movement or habits they're doing with food. With movement habits, I would say, is they're decreasing, like making the world smaller. Like, well, I no longer reach up here, or I no longer bend down there. Why? Well, I'm afraid because. Okay, so something bad hasn't happened yet. So just being aware that you're now making your world smaller. Or with food, when you just start to become aware and write it down, people make changes without saying, I'm going to make a change, just because they've become more aware. So as Kymberly mentioned, these little small steps really can make a huge difference, especially as we age, because balance is so important.
Definitely. And doing things that incorporate fast twitch exercises as well to help us keep those muscles stable, strong and reactive, to keep us from falling. So could you expand on that just a little bit for the audience? What kind of things you recommend for this age group?
Well, 2 points. You talked about falling, and the number one reason that older adults go from independent to dependent is a fall.
Yeah.
That's related to balance. Largely, not solely, but largely. So certainly balance training, any kind of balance training, whether people want to walk on the beach where it's an unstable surface, like moving sand, to literally standing on one leg, or to getting onto one of these pieces of equipment like a Bosu ball or one of these cushions that's standing and moving on something unstable. The other, you talked about fast twitch fiber, and a lot of people as we age, maybe related joint issues, we start being afraid of anything with jumping. And I really encourage the older adults we teach in some of our group fitness classes, we encourage still jumps, 1 foot and 2 foot takeoffs and landings, to keep that power, to keep that fast twitch, to keep that reflex speed up. And so really we stop wanting to leave the ground quickly and land quickly. And if it hurts, I totally understand that. But if it's just a fear issue, we need to build that back up to have that reactive ability. If we have to move out of the way quickly, or if a dog cuts us or a grandchild comes running, to be able to hop out of the way, or if we start to fall, to catch ourselves before we land by being able to quickly step back. So yeah, we can retain a lot of that fast twitch. And it literally is just trying that. Just try hopping up and down on 2 feet, even if it's just barely leaving in the ground, and then hopping forward. Or setting up a little grid where you say, 1 is in front, 2 is to the right, 3 is behind you, and 4 is to the left.
Like DDR, Dance Dance Revolution.
Yeah.
So I do that. And I think that's more fun. The older adults we work with, it's a bigger issue about falling. And then the boomer age people that we work with are not quite as afraid of falling. They just want to keep the ability that's keeping them up.
Right.
And so looking long-term, saying, well, I'm not having an issue yet, but I don't want to. So, if it's fun, you'll do it more.
Right. So definitely.
The pretend 9 squares of the DDR. And I put on music that I like because it's my generation. So anyone who's a boomer, it's our generation. Yeah. And we have to do these fake DDR moves because, as you mentioned, it's the quick reactive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It reminds me of hopscotch.
Yeah, that's a great example.
Used to play hopscotch, and to get out. And that's the thing I think with our, and it's really interesting. I hadn't thought of it, like you said earlier, about the fact that the boomer generation is the first generation that began to keep active, after school, basically. So that's a really interesting thing. I think there's still too much of, when our kids were little, for instance, moms sitting on the sideline. I think that's changing, but they take the kids to soccer and take the kids to the gym and to dance, and they're sitting on the sideline doing texting or reading instead of getting their own exercise, at least somewhat in our area. And again, I think that's changing, and that the gyms that'll be really successful are those that have programs for the parents while the kids are having their programs. Maybe they have some of that in your area.
Well, I have a great example. My best friend who lives in Texas, she's a yoga teacher, and she has a daughter who plays basketball. So she was spending a lot of time sitting in bleachers watching practices. And then she, on her own, realized she really hated that. So she started doing sort of her own yoga moves off to the side during practice. And then some of the other parents, mostly moms, came and said, "Oh, what are you doing?" So she ended up just forming yoga class while our kids practice.
Perfect.
And so she and the other parents just go out where they're not distracting. And then they all know now they have this to look forward to, that they do in their street clothes, yoga workouts while their kids have the practice. And that's a great example of just having the fortune to take advantage of the talent that's within that parent pool.
Yeah, that's so perfect. And the other one I noticed when we got kids, or when we have 2 internationally adopted kids, so we actually did get them one from India and one from Russia. So when they came home, I started noticing, you want to put that good kid energy to work, and so they end up getting told to run this and that errand, and then that's when we stop being as active. So I started realizing, I need to jump up and run the errand too, not just tell them to jump up because it's easier for them. So to continue to be active, and and so I think the grandparents, some of the boomer generation are already grandparents, but that's one of my visions, is we can be different kind of grandparents. We can be active, and we can be fit, and we can be playing with the kids and biking with them all the way up until, at least I plan to, essentially until on my deathbed. That's my plan.
Live long, die quickly.
Yes, that's a good one. So I'd like to get back to the mindset in a minute, Alexandra, that you mentioned, but if you could touch briefly on some of the kinds of questions you guys get. You said you get a lot of different questions that you started responding to from your boomer audience, people that were more in your age group. Can you recall a few of the top questions that people are interested in knowing?
Besides, how can we be like you guys?
Yes.
We haven't got that one lately.
No, we're going to get to that.
I've gotten that one, but don't tell Kymberly.
Okay.
You know, one of the two come to mind right away. One that we get quite often is, I used to be young and fit, and I was an athlete, and I had kids, etc., and now I've gained 30 pounds, 50 pounds, and how do I get rid of it? I'm time pressed. And the other one that we get quite a lot is quite similar, which is, I'm a caretaker of both people younger than myself and people older than myself. So I'm limited in not only my time, but my access to going to a gym. How can I move?
When I don't have more time.
I don't have more time, and I can't go somewhere.
And usually also, I don't have more energy. I'm exhausted.
Right. Yeah.
So there's that double aspect. And the third theme usually it's related, which is, okay, menopause and I were not best friends.
Yeah.
And some menopause. And I'm eating better than I used to. I'm working out still the same or more than I used to. And yet I'm still, having this extra weight on me. And how do I get that off? Coupled with the fact that this joint hurts, that joint hurts, and I don't want to do this kind of move or that kind of move. So they're related, all these, those are the three main themes that come through.
And what can you give some of your top tips that you give to those people then, to those questions?
Usually, Kymberly's is slightly different again, but coming from my mindset, usually my first answer is a question, which is, what do you enjoy? As Kymberly mentioned earlier, what do you enjoy? Or I ask to give me an example of what your daily routine looks like. Because if I'm like, for the ones about caretaker, I'm a caretaker and I need to move and I don't have time. So I look for ways that they can be moving when they don't have time. For example, someone says, well, every night I read to my parent. So then my question is, all right, well, when you're reading, do you need to be sitting down, or can you be standing up and just pacing back and forth? Or even just rocking side to side or step tapped. So you find ways that don't add to their daily schedule. You're just adding movement to what they're already doing.
Yeah.
One of my favorite baby boomers just came home from work.
Your husband?
Birthday.
Oh my, okay. Well, we won't keep you much longer. That's awesome. So what do you have planned?
I'm going to be nice to him for at least an hour today.
Okay. I'm sure that's going to be tough.
So my answer depends on which side of the question it's coming from. So from the group that's saying, gosh, I really want to get back in shape. I really need to restart. I'm just so overwhelmed and I don't want to hurt. Our answer to them is, well, what is the least you can do? We try to meet them where they are, because it's overwhelming. What is the least you can do? Well, I could get out and walk. Well, during commercials while I'm watching a TV show, I could, do a couple of ab curls. I could get up and walk in place. So to that group, we say, start with that. Start with the least possible. Well, okay, well, I was going to walk for 5, but I discovered I could do 10. I was going to do 2 push-ups, but I discovered I could do 4. So that's where we get them started there. Yeah. What can you do in the time you have already that's convenient? Well, while I'm, doing my chores, I guess I could do a couple of squats. Why not?
Yeah.
Then to the group that's saying, I've always been fit and I'm still very active, and yet I'm battling, postmenopause. To that group, we say, okay, so let's say you're doing 5 workouts a week. Just go ahead, pick up and hang back up. To that group, we say, okay, supplant one of those, maybe steady state. Let's say someone says, well, I'm doing 2 to 3 strength training workouts a week, and I'm doing 5 cardio workouts a week. Then we would say, take out 2 of those cardios that are steady state and put in high intensity interval training. Yes. It doesn't mean high impact, but intensity. If you were on the elliptical, or if you were taking a walk, add some hills, pick up the pace. Or if you were taking a class, then maybe within the class structure, do some power moves or go really hard and intensely every 2 minutes, every 5 minutes for about 2 minutes. So to that group, we'd say add the high intensity interval. And because people, if they're successful, they'll continue. Yeah. So what happens, the media, what's in the media is geared toward people who are 20. We hear a lot of this HIIT boot camp about it. Right. Talked earlier about the punishment stuff.
Well, so people think, okay, well, I have to do that to be fit, and the government guidelines say I have to go this many minutes, 120 minutes. Is it 120 minutes? Is it 60 minutes?
150.
Right.
Right.
So, right. So do I have to do this? Do I have to do that? It's really confusing. So we don't work that way because you lose. You'll always be a loser. I don't want to do high impact, and I may not have that amount of time. So as Kymberly said, well, what's the least you could do? I could do 2 minutes. Okay, well, then they do 3 minutes. So guess what? They're successful because they surpassed. Or they do 2 minutes and they're still successful. And once your mind perceives you to be in success, you want to replicate that.
Yeah.
So we'll have to say, oh, well, I can't do, I'll use the push-up example again. I can't do a push-up. Well, that goes back to a definition of what's a push-up? Well, if you're against the wall and your hands are on the wall and you're mostly standing, that's still a push-up.
Right.
Well, if you're on the ground on your knees going up and down, that's still a push-up.
Mm-hmm.
And so, well, I can't do this high impact stuff. All right, well, that's looking at definition. You don't need to be jumping and loading up that much. What if you, as we say, just added an incline? Or what if you put something in a backpack, some weight in a backpack, so you're not stressing the limbs? There are ways to address people's concerns that work within their parameters.
Yeah, definitely. That makes a lot of sense. So you two guys just came back from, I guess, a few weeks ago speaking at Bloggers at Midlife Conference, right?
That was a lot of fun.
I just was thinking about that when you were talking. Used to be midlife was around 35, midlife crisis around 35. And I think, now midlife is around 50, right? I figure I'm halfway, to 100 is 50, that's midlife to me. So
we had one lady say, I won't know until I die, and I'll cut that in half.
They won't know. Exactly. So, so can you tell us a little bit about the conference and, how you got involved in that and what that was about?
Sure. Well, it started as a Facebook group. And I think that's where we first discovered bloggers and then organized around that. The two women who created that, Ann Paris and Sharon Greenthal, they created this Facebook group for bloggers on any subject, not just fitness, but any subject. And you had to be a woman, you had to be in your midlife, however you define that, and blog. Those are the only criteria. And from that, the community grew and was so collegial and supportive. And people were suggesting, well, can't we get together and have an event? And I'll let Alexandra take it from there.
They organized it. So we actually did two things. One was we talked about media kits, which is the social media part of it. And the other part is we led an early morning workout.
Nice.
So, well, it was nice for the few that showed up because as most of the ladies said, this sounds great, but it sounds too early. Yeah, and I'll be exhausted for the rest of the day. And so and it's really hard to say, but if you get up early and come to the class, you'll gain energy, and then it's hard for people to know that until they feel that in their own bodies. So we ribbed them, and then we said, okay, but if you don't come, you're going to hear how fun it was later, and you'll wish you'd come. So then some actually came because they said they didn't want to be in a position of hearing later that they missed the fun. So that's what we did. So next time we'll teach a little later.
Yeah. What time was it? What
they scheduled us for 7 in the morning.
Oh, that's not bad.
It wasn't too bad. And for us, of course, it was 4 in the morning because we had flown from the West Coast to the East.
Right.
And we had flown in the day prior. So I said, hey, gang, seriously, if we can get up and cue and think at all at that moment and move at the same time, you guys can do it.
That's
and mostly who showed were the people who were already fit and consistently exercising. We were hoping to gather a lot more of those who were trying to restart a program, and we had options for them that we said they're very, very entry-level friendly. And
we promised them no sweating.
We did. We promised them no sweating. And we gave them some great ab work and core work, and Alexandra did a class called Drums Alive that engages their brain quite a bit. And having
it sounded like you said their brain crud. I did not engage their brain crud.
No, so it engages their brain what?
Quite a bit.
Okay.
It was with drumsticks.
Yeah.
It's called Drums Alive. It was with drumsticks, and we used the back of chairs because that's what we had. So next year, of course, the people heard how great it was, and that Kymberly really didn't make them sweat. So next year, we know that the group that said, we should, we're all for guilt if that's your motivator. However, next year we'll just do it a little later. Or they'll it out in such a way that people have time to go change their clothes.
I wish
or
that.
we'll just bring food. We'll bring food.
Yeah, I wish I wish the conferences would think to incorporate exercise and movement at least every couple hours, you know, and have someone lead the whole room in movement and vigorous movement every couple hours, you know, or, you know, just as you know, I've done presentations where just getting the audience up and having them, you know, do chair squats basically, and then football feet, you know, drum in place for 60 seconds. They were amazed at how much that rejuvenated their energy and woke them up, you know, so really, like you said, it doesn't take a lot.
Maybe we give you a couple more tips to use at those conventions and events. And certainly we try to incorporate this too, is exactly what you're doing is on target, and we couldn't support that more. If people get up and move even just for that 60 seconds, they will find they're more productive, they're more alert, et cetera, et cetera. Couple tips. If you do something that crosses the midline, if I have an arm come across my midline or a leg come across my midline, it will stimulate those people at the events, the presentations, will stimulate their brains even more. If there is some kind of polyrhythm involved, so it's not just a straight count, but if there's some kind of synchronization, or let's say you're doing football feet and you go quick to slow, or 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Those polyrhythms, if they change, will also stimulate their brains a little bit more, and finding that people then who come out of that with as few as 60 seconds really do enhance their memory, their recall, their attention, their focus, their creativity.
And they help prevent Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
Really cure this fountain of youth that was, you know, discovered or not discovered. It has actually been discovered. It's exercise.
It is.
It comes up all the time. Yesterday, somebody sent me research on MS. It showed, guess what? MS, exercise. They already knew that, but this was specifically looking at cognition. So, I mean, exercise is the fountain of youth. I'm actually 75. We lied earlier.
Right. No, and I mean, it's so logical and commonsensical, but I think in so many areas of our life, when the industrial and then the office kind of lifestyle started, you know, we lost touch with how our bodies were really designed, what they were designed to do. And so I think that, you know, certainly with movements toward exercise, we're going to come full circle, and people are going to become more realize that and get more and more back to that, thanks to people like you and our company as well, working on that. And really, I mean, it just makes so much sense. I was thinking about that the other day. I was getting really sleepy out. It's funny. I started a fitness company, and now all of a sudden I'm doing a lot of sitting, you know, and just way, way too much, because I'm super busy working basically 80 hours, 75, 80 hours a week over this, so far this year. And so the time is just not there. But, you know, to get out and bike up the hill or walk and run the dogs up the hill, it's amazing. What you realize is we are batteries and we are the charger.
Well put. And there's that constant irony of being fitness professionals or fitness enthusiasts, and like yourself, valuing movement and recognizing we're spending more time sitting at our computers. I knew I hit a low moment when someone asked me, "Hey, Kymberly, you want to go work out?" I said, "I can't. I have to finish this fitness post."
Yeah. Yeah. You know, well, and yet we love that too. I mean, that's the thing when you're and I think the more active you are, you know, the more you can do in all areas of your life, you know, and that gets back to mindset. The more creative you are, the more mental you are, you know, it's a little bit of a myth, isn't it? The concept of dumb jocks.
Yeah. She's mental.
Yeah.
You know, 20-year-old students, I have more energy and stamina than they do. I can teach 3 in a row, and you know, they have not been brought up with movement because we keep cutting PE. So it's not that I blame them. They just don't have this history. But every quarter I have at least 1 or 2 students that ask me, "How do you have so much energy?"
Yeah.
It's exercise.
Yeah,
I am a magical, amazing person, but it's actually exercise.
Yeah.
I have some genetic
exercise and nutrition.
Right. It's also, yes. Well, I actually have implemented rules about what they eat, and I try to frighten them on Instagram. Since you show me pictures of your breakfast.
Yeah, good.
So we do discuss what is appropriate eating, but that's a whole big subject now. But definitely, you know, they ask how I have that energy. And it's so simple: exercise.
Right. Well, and there's so many other things we could talk about, and you guys are so interesting and fascinating. And like I said, we're going to send people to your site, so I don't take a lot more of your time. But if we could wrap this up on the concept back to you, Alexandra, first on mindset.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I think that I notice and see is that there are many people in our age group who are looking toward winding down their life, looking toward retirement and looking toward, and thinking about how much life is gone, versus how much life is ahead. So I figure, well, rather than think, oh my gosh, I'm already 50, almost 56. And, instead it's like, wow, I've got 40 something great years left, 50 something great years left. What can I do, with the next 50 years? And how awesome a time to be alive with so much opportunity. So have there been times in your lives where you've struggled yourself with getting yourself motivated? And if so, how you got out of it, and or what do you recommend and teach people now when they're struggling with finding something that fires and lights them up and gives them a vision for a different kind of future? It's kind of a big question. So just take whatever aspect of it you like.
Door number one. I personally have not really struggled with that because I've been exercising for more part of my life than I haven't. I mean, even as a kid.
Even kids who were active.
Yeah, I was an active kid. We had soccer, we had dance. So my brain has never been wired toward that. So I've had times like when I had my knee reconstructed where I couldn't really do much of anything, and it was really, really frustrating, and it made me sad. But because I taught myself to be an optimist, it was a mindset. So when people say, I can't, that not only your brain hears that and it sends that message to your muscles, and then you can't. So I try to, interrupt that and say, all right, what can you do? Or what do you like to do? Not do you wish you could do, because that's a different deal, but what can you do? What can you do, or what would you like to do? What can you do, or what are you willing to do? Or as Kymberly said, what's the least you could do? So you have to interrupt the can't and the negative stuff and turn to the positive.
Yeah.
All right. And sometimes it's a simple thing. And sometimes people can't find anything. I don't see anything that, because of my schedule, and I'm down on myself, and because they've had this chronic stress, they're depressed, not just mentally, but their whole system is depressed. And so they can't decide anything. So then I start asking, all right, tell me something today that had you moving. Well, all I did was walk to the car. Okay, well, why don't you, instead of bringing your groceries in 2 bags at once, bring them in one at a time. Or, you talked a lot about squats. Len Kravitz is not the singer, but the famous researcher. He'll say every time you go to sit down,
squat,
stop yourself, stand back up, then sit down, which is sort
do
of
a sit down, stand up, sit down.
Yeah.
One squat in it.
So so the end of my answer to your question, to sort of wrap in all the stuff you asked me to say, is what recommendations do I have? I would say people need to write it down, a list. What can I do? Or what did I do today to get me toward my goal? And even before that, if they're stuck, what is my goal? Are you waiting? Like you said, people wind down. Well, I'm 56. If I wind down, I got a long wait. And if I say I'm going to die at 85, I will die at 85. So am I waiting, or am I actively aging?
Yeah.
And part of the wind down, we don't hear that phrase. I think we may hear from different groups. So 2 points on that. Number one is like-minded people tend to hang out together. So if somebody who is thinking, well, I want to wind down, but not really, I'm thinking of winding down, and yet I recognize that in reality, maybe that's not the best for me, start hanging out with other people who are doing what you want to be doing.
Yeah.
And that's been proven time and time again, that we adopt the habits and the eating habits, the movement habits, the value systems of the people we spend the most time with. So number one is change your group. If you need to change your social group.
Oh,
then bye. Miss you. Number two is when I hear people talking about winding down, in our experience, or at least mine, it isn't usually related to saying, I want to make my world smaller. What they're really saying is, I want to get rid of stress. The winding down is, I want to take away the stressful things.
Yeah.
And that is possible. I mean, we know that movement can help reduce stress. So that's a different kind of question. How can we help through movement? Through stretching, through yoga, through meditation, through Pilates, even through cardio, through high intensity, helping people relax and reduce stress. And we know that movement reduces stress. So it is that combination of winding down, really meaning stress going down, and or I don't really mean what I want to do is become more decrepit and shrink my world and not be able to do the things that I enjoy doing. But the other source that I want to mention is through AARP, their Life Reimagined. They have a huge campaign going on right now, exactly addressing what you brought up. People saying, well, I'm at this age now, what's next? What's my next stage of life? And that book, Life Reimagined, we're not affiliates. We don't get money for saying this, but it's a great source. And if they go to AARP, they'll find the support they need within their forums using that book to help propel them to the next stage.
Excellent. That's great. Well, I know you guys have you have a birthday celebration to get on with.
I'm looking for chocolate right now.
What's that? What's that?
Looking for chocolate right now.
Right. Is there a chocolate cake in the offing?
Can't say.
Okay. Okay. Well, you guys are adorable, and I really appreciate your sharing yourselves with us. And I look forward to posting this probably in a couple weeks, and I'll let you know when, and we'll be sure to include all the links. So
it was great to meet you online.
Great meeting you. Great.
We want to encourage everybody to send us their questions at funandfit.org.
Okay. We'll definitely include that. Yeah. I hope you see some folks there. Thanks so much, guys. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
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 Bye. Thanks.